Hi, my name is Nicole Letterman, and this is my final presentation on normalized disordered eating in adolescents, pursuit for the unattainable physique. So, why I chose this topic? I chose this topic due to personal experience and interest in eating disorders. I come from a family that is always talking about food, whether it is about what restaurants to go to or what recipes to make or how much we have eaten. Discussing meals and consumption is very commonplace amongst my family. Amongst the women of my family, these conversations were usually negative and shameful. I have distinct memories of table talk about how many French fries we were eating the night before, or requests for no butter or no salt. Though it seemed like the older female generation were struggling by constantly counting calories, it was really my cousin Lindsay and I who suffered the most. After years of overhearing relentless body shaming, both of us developed very negative relationships with food. Lindsay's began in high school when her body started to change and her middle school clothes no longer fit the same. Mine began a little bit later in college. We both began to follow in the footsteps of our elders, restricting calories, body shaming ourselves, and working out incessantly. It wasn't until a family friend called my parents in fear that I was going to harm myself with my obsessive calorie counting and exercise schedule that the older women in my family realized the damage that they had unconsciously done. Now, after years of therapy, I've developed a healthy relationship with food and my body. On the other side, I'm very attuned to negative body images and conversations that are circulating all over social media. It makes me nervous to think of how much worse off my cousin and I would have been having grown up being bombarded by these conversations and images rather than being able to drown out their insults with our Game Boys and coloring books. The social media analysis furthered my fascination on the normalization of unattainable physique and how it perpetuates negative relationships with food and self image in adolescence. This presentation will explore the current definition of anorexia nervosa as presented in the DSM 5 and recognize how disordered eating has been normalized amongst adolescents. I will also explore how this normalized behavior has in turn led to an underdiagnosis of anorexia nervosa amongst adolescents and the way clinicians need to adapt their understanding of anorexia to better diagnose. So, what is anorexia nervosa? Based on the DSM 5, the definition reads a restriction of energy intake relative to requirements, leading to a significant low body weight in the context of the age, sex, developmental trajectory, and physical health, less than minimally normal/expected. In addition, it reads intense fear of gaining weight or becoming fat or persistent behavior that interferes with weight gain. Anorexia nervosa also carries the highest mortality rate of any other mental illness. So, some potential biopsychosocial factors related to this disorder include one's environment can have a profound effect on the perpetuation of anorexia nervosa. We know this because of the extensive research that has been done correlating environmental factors to increased rates of anorexia nervosa. There is a need for more comprehensive research, exemplified by the disproportionate amount of research done on environmental factors that perpetuate anorexia rather than biological factors. Socioeconomic status can be considered a risk factor if the patient identifies typically as middle or upper class. We've recently seen that there is marginal research done on diverse populations when it comes to eating disorders. And there's definitely a need for a more diverse sample within those demographics, being age, socioeconomic status, etc. Family and peer pressure could be considered an environmental factor, though I think it is important to discuss it as its own entities. As I experienced direct and indirect familial pressure to look a certain way, that also perpetuated my anorexia nervosa. I think we also need to consider how peer pressure at school or over social media can have similar effects on someone struggling with anorexia. And to that, social media is a huge component of this toxic stew. It's where most adolescents consume the majority of the negative content that instills unrealistic body standards and influences restrictive eating. Trauma can also exacerbate anorexia nervosa, as well as the comorbidity of OCD, anxiety, and/or depression. I struggle to identify specific protective factors. However, improvements in self confidence, self esteem, independence, cognitive flexibility, group identity, and resiliency would mitigate some symptoms of anorexia nervosa. So, what is the problem? Though anorexia has been experienced by men and women throughout history, I fear that there has been an increase in anorexic behavior amongst a younger population in recent years. The interconnectedness of millennials and Gen Z through technology, in conjunction with unrealistic body expectations shared across social media, have made for a toxic stew of normalized disordered eating behavior. The distribution of edited photographs depicting extremely thin and naturally unattainable physiques has a profound effect on the rate of eating disorders and body dysmorphia on adolescents. Though we see an increase in the prevalence of this issue in younger generations more so than ever before, likely a result of social media, this issue has been occurring as long as the media has been captivated by thin female figures. An ongoing study in Minnesota has found an increase in rates of anorexia in females aged 15 to 24 over the last 50 years. The rate remains stable in males and other groups. Another study found that eating disorder symptoms are beginning earlier in both males and females than in previous years. Styson Shaw, a study by Styson Shaw study noted that within sociocultural models of disordered eating problems, there are multiple mechanisms in which a culturally thin ideal is communicated to individuals, particularly women. They found that messages distributed through the media were the strongest transmitters of this pressure. A recent Pew Internet study determined that 81% of teens aged 12 to 17 that use the internet are on some type of social media platform. This is also the same demographic that is the most affected by anorexia. Based on the research presented, we can hypothesize that there is a correlation between the onset of social media and an increase in eating disorders amongst a younger population, particularly in adolescent females. In addition, the distribution of misleading medical information on social media is contributing to the problem. We've all seen flat tummy tea to waist trainers, which make millions of dollars based off of false medical information that promises an ideal body type. In a recent study that examined the prevalence of pro anorexia video content on various media platforms, researchers concluded that pro anorexia information was identified in 29.3% of anorexia related videos. Pro anorexia videos are less common than informative videos. However, in proportional terms, pro anorexia content is more highly favored and rated by its viewers. In a similar study that focused on Tumblr, research found that pro anorexia content was 5 times more prevalent than pro recovery content. Negative and false medical information about anorexia on social media is very widespread and contributing to an unfortunately growing problem. What can social workers do to mitigate this problem? So I believe there needs to be more effort put into educating teens on the detrimental effects of social media, how to spot false and or exaggerated content, and really having open conversations about what is being distributed on social media, what our teens are consuming, how we can do a better job of policing this kind of content. In the same vein, I hope we can educate adolescents about eating disorders, nutrition, and open up the conversation. Start adolescent support groups, which will discuss the prevalence of eating disorders, ways to stop an eating disorder, how to talk to a friend about an eating disorder, and etc. Also, of course, utilizing some tried and true therapeutic modalities are a great way to kind of break apart these ideals that our adolescents have unfortunately been exposed to and hold a lot of truth with. Some of these approaches include cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal psychotherapy, specialist supportive clinical management, MM, T for adults in anorexia nervosa, or mantra, acceptance and commitment therapy, cognitive remediation therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, and of course, other psychodynamic psychotherapies that really, go into more in depth of the person's history rather than focus on the social media implications in a more CBT fashion. So, I wanted to thank you for an incredible semester. I've really enjoyed this class and have learned a lot, and really am pleased with the knowledge and content that I was able to engage with over the semester. I have really been looking for a course to teach me um, some of the more actionable psychotherapies that I felt like I was lacking in my field placement. So thank you so much, Professor, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.